What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journos, Comics, and Pop Culture, and this is a video for the ages. We're going to be talking about the best Bronze Age Marvel comic to invest in, and yes, you might be surprised which book that is. Before we get into the books, because we're going to be looking over four books in depth, I gotta let you know to please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet, and check out all the awesome links below. And I gotta give a big shout out to all my Patreon members via patreon.com. Thank you all for your continued support month after month. For all of you that might be interested in supporting the channel via patreon.com, it's only $3.99 a month where you get all kind of extra perks. That link is below for you guys to check that out. I also got to give a big shout out and thank you to all my YouTube members for supporting me month after month. If you want to be a YouTube member, that's only $1.99 a month. You get to click that join button that's right below as well. All right, all that out of the way, let's talk about these books. We have four of them, all right? And we're going to review the four books one by one. We're going to look at current fair market value, and then we're going to dive in depth to each of them, and we're going to pick which one is the Bronze Age book to invest in. We're going to start out with Werewolf by Night, number 32. Why not? This is a big Bronze Age book that's obviously has grown even bigger over the last couple of years with the announcement of the Moon Knight Disney Plus series. But this is the first appearance of Moon Knight, a very awesome character, in my opinion, that has a very cult following that has so much potential. And I think when we see this guy in the MCU, especially being played by Oscar Isaac, wow. So let's look at these numbers. CGC 9.8 high sale. This isn't fair market value, actually. This is high sale, okay? Was $31,200. Wow. That happened in March of 2021. Yes, 2021. You're reading that right now. Check this out. High raw, $2,550. That sale also happened in March of 2021. All right, so like I said, we're going to look at these high sale numbers right now. Then we're going to dive into the data even deeper. I got charts and everything for you all. But first, we're going to review all of these books. So the second book here is none other than Giant Size X-Men number 1, the first appearance of the new X-Men team, which is really the first appearance of Storm, Nightcrawler, and Colossus. But of course, this is the first time we see them all together, which includes Wolverine. Now, a CGC 9.8 high sale for this book sold for $40,500. That was just in February of 2021. And a high raw sale of $7,322, which just happened last month in March. Wow, right? Wow, this book is big time. And look, all these books have a lot of room to grow, in my opinion. Let's move on to the third book, though. One of my favorite grails, Amazing Spider-Man number 129, the first appearance of the Punisher. Amazing Gil Kane cover, one of my favorite covers ever to be made. CGC 9.8 high sale, $16,730. Now, this was back in May of 2018. So I'm wondering if this fair market value is a bit skewed and why there hasn't been a 9.8 sold over the last couple of years. But we're going to look at this high raw at $4,950. That just happened in February of 2021. Now, when you look at high sale, this is the lowest on the list yet. But guys, it's not that simple, right? You're not just going to pick which one has the highest fair market value or has the highest sale. Are you? Is that a rhetorical question? All right, we're going to look at one more, and that is, oh yes, none other than Incredible Hulk number 181, the first appearance of Wolverine. The argument's done, right? This video's over, right? This is it. This is the book, right? CGC 9.8 high sale, $49,200. This just happened in March. So that's it. This is the book. Again, rhetorical question. High raw sale, $10,130 in March as well. Wow, wow, wow. I mean, this book, right? I mean, we keep asking, can it get any hotter? Can it get any hotter? And it does. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. We're not using these high sale numbers as the only criteria that's going to allow us to pick which one of these books is the best book to invest in. So now we're going to look at them in depth, starting with this one right here, Werewolf by Night. Now remember, decent 9.8 high of 31.2, and then a high raw of 2,550. All right, we are going to analyze these books in a way that I guarantee you no YouTuber has ever done before. I'm stating it. I'm making that statement. We're going to dive into these into so much depth that, boom, we got charts on top of charts on top of charts. Now, don't get overwhelmed. I'm going to explain to you all what each of these charts mean and represent, and you guys are going to be finance pros by the time we're done here. Okay, so the one that I really want you all to focus on is the top left corner where it says Werewolf by Night 32 CGC 8.5 fair market value. We are looking at the last 9 years. Now I want you to take a look at that chart and compare it to this chart. This chart right here, this is Starbucks stock over the last like 25, 30 years, all right? I want you to look at what it's done over those years and how it's gone up, gone down, up, a little bit down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and it's continued to increase though, even with ebb and flow. Looks very similar to what's going on with this book on the market, right? That's what this chart is right here. This is basically a day-to-day, week-to-week glance of what this book has been doing over the last 9 years. So you can see that there's some peaks and valleys, some ebb and flow. It goes up a little bit. You see some drops, but then it goes up even higher. You see a little bit of drops and up even higher and so forth. That right there is the sign of a healthy market or a healthy asset on a healthy market, right? All right. Now, let's go to the right and look at this annual ROR, which means annual rate of return. This is basically the percentage of profit year after year from your initial investment, okay? So what does this mean? What does 29% in 2013 means? It means it increased 29% in value that year. In 2014, it increased 78% in value. And you can look at all the years, 26%, 26, 15, 21, 49, 2020 only had a 1%, but hey, it's an increase, right? And then 2021 had another 75% increase, big boom, but keep in mind that's only 3 months of a year. So it's a little distorted because we're not taking in the whole year because we haven't lived it yet. But what does this show me for this book? It shows me that this book has been extremely healthy because it's had increases in value every single year, all right? Now, we're going to go down right under that to the bottom right, total ROI, which is the total return on your investment. So we look at it like this. We're looking at the last 12 years, or excuse me, 9 years. In 2012, if you would have bought this book in an 8.5 CGC, you would have spent about $222. Currently, right now, the fair market value for this book in a CGC 8.5 is $2,946. All right? That means your total ROI, which is your total profit, it's very easy. You take what it's worth now and you subtract what you paid for it. $2,724. Wow. Let's look at what that is as a percentage though. 1,127% profit. 1,120% ROI. That is absolutely insane. Now we're going to go over to the bottom left to projected increases based on a 35% annual ROR. Let me explain what that means. When you take your annual ROR, rate of return, and you create an average of what it's doing, this averaged out to 35%. So if we project over the next 9 years, the value of this book in an 8.5 in 2029 is estimated to be sitting at about $9,000. Now, this is the one you all need to take with a grain of salt because it doesn't take into consideration ebb and flow whatsoever. But if it's on the same trajectory that it's been over the last 9 years, if it was on that same trajectory, this is exactly what it would be worth. Because look, this book increased over 1,000%, right? If it stays on the same trajectory though from where it's at right now and ends up at about a 9,000 fair market value, that's not even 1,000% ROI. That's basically just about tripling in value, right? Which would be a 300% or so ROI. So look, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. Do I feel like it's going to be worth that much? I really cannot tell you, because we know that markets are cyclical, the health, ebb and flow, but I'll tell you this much. It's really amazing to look at the trends and see where it could head. All right. Are you guys still with me here? Are we having fun? We're going to move on to the next book. What did we talk about? Oh, here we go. We talked about Giant Size X-Men #1. Now, this is a much higher dollar book in that 9.8, right? Currently at the moment. But let's look at the data. And again, we're using CGC 8.5 for all of these books. So let's look at the top left, the CGC 8.5 fair market value and what it's done on the market over the last 9 years. This book has been a lot more, say, you know, I don't want to say stagnant, but it's been a bit more even keel on the market over the last 9 years, outside of the last, you know, year or two, right? So where Werewolf by Night 32 constantly grew, this one kind of sat. It kind of sat, you know, over those first few years until it started finally seeing some more increases. All right, I would actually definitely think that the selling of Fox and getting the properties back to Disney and Marvel had something to do with that. But not everything. That's just one variable. All right, but let's look at the annual rate of return for these. So you guys could see this. I mean, it took a loss in 2015. What is that? Like a 16%, I think it says there. And some of those increases are very small, 4% 2013, 5 and 17. But it had some really big years, 32 in 2016, 41, 62. But look at what it's done this year so far. 121% increase. I mean, you can see it there on the lifespan chart. Look at that. Look at that increase. Woo, it shot way up. Do I think that's going to hold? I definitely think this book can absolutely cool off over the next year unless we get an announcement of some sort from Marvel Studios. But even with the cool off over the next year, again, I talk about thresholds, just like you look at these charts, up, down a little bit, up even higher, down a little bit, up even higher. That's what's going to keep happening with this book, in my humble opinion. Now, let's look at total return on investment. So if you bought this book 9 years ago in 2012, you would have paid around $625 for that CGC 8.5. Right now, if you buy it, you're going to be paying about $6,039. That's a total of $5,414 in profit, an ROI percentage of 866%. So that's a little bit lower percentage than your Werewolf by Night, but keep in mind, this book is more valuable in terms of dollar amount. Now let's look at the projection over the next 9 years. Projected increases based on a 34% annual ROR. Again, very similar upward trend, where it's sitting at about $6,000 now. In 9 years, it could be sitting at almost $20,000. Now, quite honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this book got anywhere close to that, simply because of what Marvel Studios can do with this property, with X-Men. So, but again, you never know. But again, if it stays on that same trajectory, that's what you're looking like. And what is that? That's basically another about a 300% increase over the next 9 years, next to 866% increase over the last 9 years. Moving on to Amazing Spider-Man #129. Again, this one had the lowest current high in terms of, you know, the CGC and the high raw. But let's look at the data. Let's look at the data. This one it had constant increases over the last 9 years. Definitely steady. No real increase in 2014, and it did take a small dip in 2019. I think that says, what, only 3% there. Went back up a little bit in 2020, but a huge 97% increase so far this year, right? I mean, look at that again. And can that hold? Hey, ebb and flow, peaks and valleys, right? Let's look at total ROI, return on investment. If you bought this book in 2012, you paid around $414 for that CGC 8.5. If you were to buy it today, it'd be at $3,058 roughly. That's a total return on investment of $2,644, which is a ROI percentage of 639%. A bit lower percentage there from the last two, but still very, very healthy. Projection over the next 9 years, you're looking in 2029 at this being possibly hitting above that 8,000 mark. So that's not even triple where it's at now. The average ROR for this book has been sitting at about 28%, which has been a little lower than the last two books. So again, possibilities are obviously there. Obviously there. All right. Are you guys ready? I mean, we all think of this next book as the big kahuna of Bronze Age books. And yes, it's none other than Hulk 181, the first full appearance of Wolverine. We saw that CGC 9.8 high sale of 49,200, high raw over 10K. I mean, this book is just going nuts, especially in those high grades. So let's look at what it's done. This book is again, steady increases, decently noticeable peaks and valleys. But look at this. I mean, it actually did have a loss year in 2014, where it took a loss of a return of 4%. But I mean, 37%, 44, 18, 32, 42, solid year after year, right? 6%, 0.3%, not even 1% increase in 2020. And then a nice 54% increase so far this year. So again, I want to point out all four of these books, they look like healthy stocks. They look like healthy, tangible assets when you look at the lifespan over the last 9 years. Now, if you were to buy this book in 2012, you would have had to put more money down than any of the other books, right? Simply because it was already valued higher. $984, right? But if you were to buy one now, $6,681. That's a profit or a return on investment of $5,697. So that is a 579% ROI percentage. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but let's just review the projected increases based on a 25% annual ROR. So ironically, this book had the lowest average annual ROR at 25%. So if you look at projections over the next 9 years, 2029, this book looks to be sitting at roughly about 16K. That's, again, not quite tripled in value. So anything is possible, obviously. But again, take these projections with a grain of salt. It doesn't consider peaks and valleys, ebb and flow, and cyclical ups and downs of the market, okay? Now, here's the thing. What did you guys see out of all these books? And that's why I told you in the title, you might not know which one I'm going to pick here. Interestingly enough, Hulk 181 had the lowest average ROR and the lowest ROI, the lowest return on investment in terms of a percentage. So let me show you something. We're going to go back. Look at Amazing Spider-Man 129. You could have got this book in 2012 for half the price that you got a Hulk 181 at, because this one was $414. Hulk 181 was 900 and something. Here's the thing. If I asked you in 2012, what's the best investment? Or if you had an option of investing $414 in an Amazing Spider-Man 129 or $900 and something in a Hulk 181, which one would you have bought 9 years ago? I want you to tell me in the comments. I want to know your guys' thoughts. And please be honest. I want you to answer this question before I tell you what I'm about to tell you. You might already have seen because of the numbers that I've given you. Would you have rather have bought an Amazing Spider-Man 129 in the CGC 8.5 for $414 in 2012, or spent $984 in 2012 on a CGC 8.5 Hulk 181. I'm going to tell you something. You could have doubled your money and bought 2 Amazing Spider-Man 129s, had more money in your pocket than buying one Hulk 181, and you would have had a higher profit than buying the Hulk 181. Because the profit in your pocket is a higher percentage. It is a higher percentage in ROI. And that's why looking at percentage is extremely important. Extremely important. If you put the same amount of money in the Amazing Spider-Man 129 stock that you would have in a Hulk 181 stock 9 years ago, and you sold those books today, you would have made a larger return on investment investing in Amazing Spider-Man 129. This goes back to the video I did discussing, would you have rather bought in 2013, would you have rather bought one Amazing Spider-Man #1, or like, what was it, 352 Amazing Spider-Man 300s? And when I did that video in 2017, people called me crazy because I picked the 300 or 400 Amazing Spider-Man 300s. They called me crazy. But I did a follow-up last year, and it's even more crazy now because that book is still soaring. If you spent the same amount of money on an Amazing Spider-Man 1 in 2013, and took that same amount of money and put it into multiple copies of an Amazing Spider-Man 300, and you sold all the Amazing Spider-Man 300s today next to selling the one Amazing Spider-Man 1 today, you would have made an extremely larger profit going with the multiple copies of Amazing Spider-Man 300. That's why return on investment percentage is extremely important. But here's the thing, guys. Timing matters. If you would have bought, I don't have the fair market values off the top of my head right now, but I can guarantee you, if you had a choice to buy a Hulk 181 in 1985 and an Amazing Spider-Man 129 in 1985, I guarantee you, if you bought the Hulk 181 next to maybe even like 2 or 3 Amazing Spider-Man 129s, you would have made more money because the differentiation in fair market value back then probably wasn't that much. You could probably get a Hulk 181, and I'm just throwing a number out there, in 1985 for maybe, $35, where you could have maybe gotten a ASM 129 for 15 or something like that, right? So if you would have the choice then, I would have absolutely went with the Hulk 181 because of the growth in percentage from that year. But we're looking at 9 years ago, and the proof is in the pudding of what you should have done 9 years ago. All right, so which book is the book to invest in? Which book? The winner is Werewolf by Night 32. And I'm going to show you why. We're going to look at these 4 variables. Total profit in dollar amount. Hulk 181, hands down. But the highest ROI in terms of percentage, Werewolf by Night 32. Highest ROR, Werewolf by Night 32. Lowest volatility, remember, Werewolf by Night was the only book that did not have a decrease year in fair market value. But here's what I'm going to tell you. This is all subjective still. Like I said, we're only looking at 9 years. If you would have put the same amount of money in a multiple Werewolf by Nights 32 and bought multiple books of this, that it would have cost, what was it, $200 and something? So you could have got like four books of these in 2012 for the price of one Hulk 181. If you did that and bought 4 of these next to the one Hulk 181 and you sold them today, you'd have more money in your pocket. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. Nobody's telling what the future holds. This book is booming right now. And even though this book had the lowest volatility over the last 9 years, that can change. You never know. And I'm going to tell you something else. Lowest volatility doesn't mean it's going to be the best investment. Sometimes the best investment have higher volatility. So if you know anything about the stock market, if you go into a moderate, right, stock portfolio next to a conservative, you're taking on more risk. But whenever you take on more risk, you're taking on more opportunity to gain a larger return on investments. You are. So just because this book over the last 9 years has the lowest volatility rate, it doesn't mean that it's the best investment for the future, right? So we could sit here and say, well, we didn't buy these books back in 2012. We didn't. What if we want to buy them right now? Well, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, what's your budget? Because you're still having to fork out more money for Hulk 181 than any of the other books. Next to that would be Giant Size X-Men, because that just broke 40K in a 9.8. Next one would be Werewolf by Night, which broke over 30K, right? And then, you know, the lowest one, which I think is skewed, was Amazing Spider-Man 129. So you got to look at money in your pocket. But we don't know. We don't know what's in store. This book could stagnate a bit once we finally get Moon Knight. I mean, I don't think this book is slowing down right now. Once we get a trailer and we get the show, this book is going to continue to increase, in my humble opinion. But after the show and it calms down, we're going to see natural ebb and flow. And by that time, we might get an announcement of X-Men in the MCU, which might drive those books up higher than what they're doing right now. And I've said this before, X-Men books are doing this without any type of real announcement for the X-Men in the MCU. And taking into consideration Punisher. What if John Bernthal gets announced officially to come back into the MCU on Disney Plus or something, or on Hulu, or we see him in a movie or something like that? You just never know, people. So while Werewolf by Night wins when we're considering these variables, no decision in terms of investment is this black and white. And you might be looking at everything that I ran in terms of data and you're saying, Chris, black and white, you broke this down under 20 million microscopes and you're still calling it black and white? Well, yeah, guys, guess what? I still didn't even crack the surface. I still didn't even crack the surface on how to analyze investments. You got it? So with that being said, I hope you guys learned something. I really want you guys to take away return on investment and percentage, because it's not always what you think. It's not always what you think in terms of what the best investment is right then, right now. But I will tell you one thing. Every single one of these books is a great investment, even if you're buying them right now. Obviously, if you don't own them right now, you miss the boat to really have a large profit margins. But look, these books are going to stand the test of times. First appearances of some amazing characters, and they are not going anywhere. So while I still believe Hulk 181 is that book, it's going to be that book. It's the Amazing Fantasy 15 of the Bronze Age. It is the Action Comics #1 of the Bronze Age. Investing isn't that simple. And if you're talking about flipping and making money and profit margins, sometimes it's not always that book that you want to go after. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and took some things out of it and learned a few things or two. I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Again, thank you so much for watching. Be well, and until next time.